a master and disciple relationship is quite deeply ingrained. When they need help, try and see when they're in need and reach out to them. The martial art that I practice, typically practice in the West, doesn't go beyond the physical realm. Everyone just wants to kick and punch and get sweat on. We're trying to bring it back and detect and say, look, let's look at it a different way. We've got this amazing role model that we can use as a springboard, not only teaching his martial art and philosophy, but using the energy that he was putting out there to become a world magnate in the martial arts world.
How often do you get to talk to a real martial arts master whose mission in life is to preserve and promote Bruce Lee's martial art and philosophy of Jeet Kune Do? Well, my guest today does just that. Sifu Lak Loi is a self-mastery specialist, a published author of 4 books, a healer and a martial arts instructor, the 3rd generation of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do. He has a direct lineage to Bruce Lee himself and is certified under the famous Wednesday Night group. By day, he's a true white-collar warrior. He's been a City and Wall Street consultant since 1997, currently working in the City of London by day as a senior IT consultant. Lak has coined the term martial mind power, and today, I'm really looking forward to learning from Sifu Lak one particular thing: how to unleash your inner Bruce Lee. Welcome, Lak. Welcome. So nice to see you. I've heard so much about you through mutual friends, and I really want to learn from you today. I'm so excited. So welcome. But before we begin, tell me, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, my pleasure.
And for allowing me to share with your wonderful views.
Absolute pleasure. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good. Nice, calm, relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah, all good. And, in your presence, so I can't be better.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you so much. So you are a martial arts master, and specifically from the lineage of Bruce Lee, right? So I want to begin. There are 3 questions I've got for you in the main, but let's begin with understanding the first question being, what you are a Sifu. You are Sifu Lak Loi.
Yeah.
What does Sifu mean?
Well, firstly, I'm going to make a clarification. In martial arts, a true martial artist always practices what's called the beginner's mind.
Yes.
So none of us are masters.
No.
But what I say is, cultivating the sort of consciousness. So you're getting sharper.
Well, I'm going to call you a martial arts master.
you feel free.
Yeah.
But
because you are. I appreciate the humility.
Yeah.
I understand the philosophy, but in truth, what you have accomplished and how long you've been at your art is, and you haven't earned the right to teach without having acquired a certain level of mastery. So, I appreciate the humility, and I really get the philosophy behind it. And at the same time, people want to know, at what level do you operate?
Yes.
And that's what we're talking about.
I get it. And I appreciate that. And I thank you for the compliment as well. Now, going back to your question, the meaning of a Sifu. Now, a Sifu really is quite simply a reference to a teacher or a guru, a guide, as it may be. But it really refers to somebody that's achieved some level of excellence that other people can model. So a role model of some way, shape or form. Now, a head chef in a restaurant, in a Michelin-star restaurant, would be considered the Sifu in that restaurant, for instance. So Sifu is not necessarily to do with martial arts per se. It's to do with excellence. And what we're trying to do is model excellence at the highest level. So martial artistry, in particular Chinese martial arts, they use Sifu or Shifu, depending on whether it's Cantonese or Mandarin, respectively. That's how that word is used. And there's the other aspect of Sifu, wherein what that means is that the Sifu also has a duty of care towards the students, but not as in duty of care as you know it, but somebody that's got the students back, and should they be put in harm's way, will go out their way and lay their life on the line for them, as you would do with a loved one or a family member. So the teacher and student relationship, or what you could call a master and disciple relationship, is quite deeply ingrained. And with the way I practice, I like to imbue that in the way I greet my students and the way operate in a class environment and the way I operate outside of a class environment, the way I try and handle my students when they need help, try and see when they're in need and reach out to them before they've reached out to me. And quite often when students are going through turmoil or are going through some kind of disturbance in life, they'll withdraw. And that's where a Sifu steps in to give them that holding hand to guide them and show them the way.
Pull them out of the ditch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said, to pull somebody out of a ditch, you yourself have to be out of the ditch.
Yeah.
And that's
And you have to
where that
recognize
effort
that
goes in.
somebody is in the ditch.
Yes.
Like, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
If they're actually literally in a ditch, it's easy to see. But actually, when it's psychological or when it's, life issues, or when you are in the process as a yogi, I know that, we get into these grooves in our minds where we get stopped by a certain ceiling that we may not know that we have, part of our blind spot.
Yeah.
A fear or something somewhere has happened in the past that we haven't distinguished that becomes, suddenly comes to the fore and starts to be in operation, and it impacts the practice. And so it's really helpful to have a guru. We call it a guru in the yogic lineage, in the Vedic lineage, we would call it a guru. A guru takes on, traditionally it is said that a guru is somebody who has achieved the level of mastery where they are actually able to take on another person's karma.
Yeah.
Okay, in order to help them to move to that next level.
Yeah.
So it's, in a sense, what you're saying is that you actually take such a high degree of not just accountability, but responsibility.
That's right.
So presumably you don't take your students on very lightly.
I screen my students. It's important for that to happen. But I'll be honest with you, over the years, we've got to a place where the students that apply are right. Energetically, I'm attracting the students that need my guidance and the ones that I can help. And so they come. And then we take it from there.
Amazing. So the next question I have for you, and my lion's share of the question for this episode is the third question. So, but I do want to understand, what exactly does Kung Fu mean?
Kung Fu. Now, typically, people think of Kung Fu as a martial art that involves combative, kicking and punching, hurting somebody. Specifically, or hopefully, when somebody's put in harm's way, you need to do something and you've got no other choice but to resort to what we call controlled violence. And so that's the typical reference of Kung Fu. But Kung Fu is a practice of attaining ultimate potential. So you're familiar with the yin yang sign. Now, yin yang, or the Tahiti, refers to, or actually translates directly into, ultimate potential. So what Kung Fu really is about helping students tap into their ultimate potential. So we're helping them do that through the body, the mind, the emotion, and the spirit. The martial art that I practice, typically practice in the West, doesn't go beyond the physical realm. And that's okay for those people that need to cultivate the body as their first level. But eventually they'll go into the mind. And I will also say at the same time, 95% of my students come in with mental health conditions because they have something within them that they need to overcome. It could be confidence issues, for instance. It could be...
So not serious mental health issues, but like psychological
it could
development.
Be. More recently, lot more students have depression type of issues, other neurodivergent type of issues are coming up more and more. And that has really, post-pandemic, been more prevalent than prior to that.
Wow.
Yeah. But I'd say in my whole teaching career, 95% of the students have come in with something like that. And some of those issues, when we say mental health conditions, what we're talking about is, students that have been through some kind of trauma, whether it's in their childhood, whether it's in a relationship or their workplace or some other environment, family environment, or outside the family environment, they're experiencing some kind of trauma and they need to overcome that. So Kung Fu not only becomes about helping students tap into their ultimate potential, but it's helping them heal.
Mm.
So traditionally, martial arts was taught, they help you cultivate your spirit. And then you teach other people to cultivate spirit. Then they'll help you to cultivate your emotions. Then you'd help others cultivate their emotions. Then they'll help you cultivate your mind.
Mm.
Then you help others cultivate their mind. Then they help you cultivate body, and you help others cultivate their body. And it was top down.
Mm.
And only then would you would be allowed to learn combative martial arts. And the reason is, when you're cultivating yourself and then teaching others, you're becoming the healer.
Mm.
Because on the flip side, when you get down to the combatives, you're hurting. So you've got this dichotomy where you've got healing and hurting, and they're both part of the same
coin.
It's a totality, two sides of the same coin.
Mm.
So what we're looking at here is the martial part being the destructive, hurtful aspect, and the art part being the constructive, healing element. And you can't have one without the other. If you're going to make a table, you've got to destroy a piece of wood, a tree, to make a beautiful coffee table. And it's that idea that permeates into all aspects of our being, physically and metaphysically.
So it's that Trinity that in the Indian Vedic culture, you have the Trinity. You've got the Shiva that they say he's the destroyer, but actually he's the transformer, because he transforms something. Then you've got Brahma, who is actually the creator, or he represents creation. And then Vishnu, who maintains that which has been created. And then when its time is up, then it gets to, go back into the cycle of dissolution.
That's right.
So it's like the three cannot but go together in a sense.
It's interesting you say that, because I've actually been studying the Vedas for the last 15 months. You're 100% right. Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu are all demigods. But as demigods, as you said, they're not part of the same. They've got their distinct designations, and they're, Shiva and Vishnu. They're what are called eternal designations in the Shastras. Whereas Brahma isn't eternal.
No.
It lasts for the lifetime of a universe, which is infinite amounts. But above that, there's supreme Godhead, a supreme consciousness. And everything emanates from that. So they are all part of that, but they have very distinct roles within that.
But on I don't want to get into the different strands of philosophies of this, but really Shiva is consciousness.
Yes.
And Shakti is that which is that ignites the consciousness in order to accomplish something. She's the action, she's the energy, she's the power. And so we have that yin yang again.
Yeah.
And so I know that there are lineages that talk about the same thing in different language, and they have different ways of explaining it. But fundamentally, I think what's interesting to me is that, your lineage of Kung Fu, Jeet Kune Do, that one, and the philosophy of that is just so consistent with the yogic philosophies.
Yeah.
Because it's truly about reaching your highest potential. And that's what I want to talk to you about. So
let me just interrupt you there for a second. I'll blow your mind now, because the whole idea of martial arts is to attain Wu Chi. And Wu Chi is supreme consciousness. Yeah? Wu Chi is the highest out of all of them. So what we're trying to do is practice yoga, which is to connect to the divine. And a lot of people don't realize that that's what martial arts is. It's about connecting to the divine, which is why traditionally we started at the spirit.
Yeah.
But in the West now, we start with the physical.
Yeah.
Everyone just wants to kick and punch and get a sweat on. and feel like they've had a workout.
Yeah.
So we're trying to bring it back into check and say, look, let's look at it a different way. You know, we've got, like you said, a really rich lineage of, you know, the most iconic martial artist of our lifetime. You know, my generation, current generations before me, while Bruce was alive. He died the year I was born, for instance, to put it into context. And we've got this amazing role model that we can use as a springboard, not only teaching his martial art and philosophy, but using the energy that he was putting out there to, you know, become a world magnate in the martial arts world, which is what he is. And we've got this huge opportunity to help share these amazing teachings.
So then, tell me, I'm dying to know.
Go for
And you're
it.
going to have to encapsulate this for this 30-minute episode that we're recording right now, which is, how do you unleash your inner Bruce Lee? What are the principles behind that?
In my first book, I outlined 9 steps. The first step is really about stillness. You know, when you've got chaotic mind, you're not going to do anything with that. You know, chaos inside means chaos outside. What's happening in the inner world is going to be expressed outwardly. The first thing is to attain a level of stillness. Now, stillness, to be clear, is not about being still. It's about having tranquility in movement, or what I call stillness in motion. Right. So that's the first step. Second step is you've got to then move on to being open to learn something. So Bruce had used this Chinese parable where he talked about, you know, a Chinese master and a student coming to meet this Chinese master, and the students yapping away, you know, and the master couldn't get a word in edgeways. So he said, "Would you like some tea?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." So he fills this tea up, and the cup's filling. It gets right to the brim, and it starts overflowing all over the table. And the student's like, whoa, you know, can you, you know, the tea's filling. And he's like, well, if you want to taste my tea, you need to empty your teacup. So the second stage, I called it empty your teacup, and it's about opening your mind to new possibilities. So that became the second stage. And really that prepares you to kind of start to learn new things. Then the third step is about being able to become alert, aware, and perceptive, to be able to see without looking. So it's that whole thing, you know, when you're single and you're looking for a partner, you don't find one. The moment you switch off, bang, you know, you meet someone and you're like, ah, they were right in front of my nose, you know, right there. And life is such that the answers are in you or right under your nose. And so this third chapter became titled Possess an Eagle Eye.
Possess an eagle eye.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So if you model the way an eagle's vision works, the science behind it is actually quite mind-blowing, in the sense that an eagle has got amazing perceptual abilities.
Can see so much from so far, so high up.
Absolutely. And then we're trying to model that in some respects, but at the same time, we're also trying to take advantage of our faculties as well, to be able to see without looking. So that's the third level. The fourth level,
So is that about focus?
that's about seeing.
It's about
Yeah.
seeing or
It's about
focus?
becoming aware that there's things that you need to change within you. First, fundamentally, how can you cultivate self-mastery if you're already perfect? And what we're trying to say here is that everybody's imperfect, and that we can all improve. And the fact that we're in this physical body means that we haven't attained our spiritual.
We're already limited by the sort of limitations of the mind, let's
That's
say,
right.
you know, mind and the body.
Yeah. So it's about seeing what can we improve in ourselves. How can we cultivate more excellence and tap into our true ultimate potential?
Yeah.
And so that you've got to cultivate your faculties to be able to do that. Then the fourth stage is called Wata, as in Wata. And
That's what they say a
that's
lot.
what Bruce says.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's
It's
his
a
key.
water, flowing water.
It sounds like water, but actually, what it is Bruce and his key eye. They call it cries of war. Do you want me to give you a cry of war?
Go on.
So Bruce would be like, Wata! Right?
This needs to come
So,
with a warning.
You see that the energy goes up, and then I brought it down, and I could. Bruce had this innate ability to be able to switch his adrenaline on and off mid-fight. You could just switch it on and off, and even when I said that, you probably felt a little bit of rush there, just with the sound, But you're controlling your intrinsic state using sound. The Wata stage is about facing your fears by understanding and controlling your fear mechanism, right? So it's about facing your fears ultimately, but a lot of that has to do with not fearing fear itself, because most people get paralyzed and freeze in the face of fear.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is, if you understand what fear is, you understand the adrenaline response, you understand what adrenaline feels like, then use it as your turbo boost, use it as your nitrous, as I like to call it, and use it, in a constructive way. So that's the Wata stage. The fifth stage is called Think and Become. Now, this is where we start to shift our mindset. We're doing a paradigm shift and saying, okay, now we need to get into the stage of believing that we are capable of more. And this whole process started with Dr. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, where I'd read a piece of writing by Bruce called the Definite Chief Aim, and it was inspired by an exercise that Dr. Napoleon Hill prescribed.
And he wrote to himself.
He wrote it to himself.
How much he would earn by
Yeah,
when?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's in that book. And so we're using those principles now to say, okay, now you're going to elevate yourself, but you have to elevate your thinking. Now, to elevate your thinking, you've got to do a paradigm shift in yourself. You are the paradigm shift. So that's what that stage is all about. Then after that, all of these 5 stages are internal. And then we start to come out into the world. So we start to externalize. So we're internalized, and we're like, all right, now go out into the world. So the next stage is called honestly express yourself. And that's about...
Honestly express yourself.
That's correct. And that's about speaking your truth without offending people. Because when you are your own truth, and you sit centered with yourself, comfortable in your own skin, then you can say what you need to say with
without
kindness, compassion,
or straight
love, all of these things. And if somebody disagrees, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's absolutely cool.
Now, having said that, I have come across people who it does take nothing to offend them, and they will be offended.
Yeah.
No matter how diplomatically you put stuff. I'm just saying.
There's always going to be people like that. But then, you see, there's in the Shastras,
But it comes down to your intention.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it comes down to your intention, doesn't it? So no, I completely understand. Some people will take it the way they'll take it, from how they perceive it. And you have to make sure that you are anchored in an authentic truth.
That's right.
And say it as kindly and compassionately as you possibly can, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Amazing.
So that's honestly express yourself. And then after honestly express yourself, we're going into things like power sides forwards. So what we're doing is we're using our strengths.
Power side forwards.
So this is about using your strengths and start to use them to your maximum ability and start to really put them into practice. Right. Then the next stage, and I want to refer to my phone for a second. The reason I say that is because
I've got the whole book here. So this is the book.
So
it's Master Your Life.
Before power sides forwards, actually, this is one I always forget about, is be like water.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
This is about getting into the flow.
My favorite.
So once you honestly express yourself, the idea is to get into the flow so
Yeah.
that you're in a what's called a flow state.
Yes.
And to get into the flow state is an interesting state because, quite often, we feel like life's blocking us, or we're blocking ourselves in life, and things are kind of jarred sometimes. We're trying to get into a peak flow state. And when we're in that peak flow state, everything just happens superfluously. And we want to get our thinking and our actions into that state. And when you get into that state, everything's just happening seamlessly. And then after that, we're talking about a power side forwards, which is using your strengths, and in some cases identifying your weaknesses and help strengthen those if they are necessary. But ultimately using the strengths and the talents and the gifts and cultivating them to put your best side forwards into the world. And the last stage is stay ahead. Now, stay ahead is interesting because it's ultimately about understanding your rhythm in life. With rhythm is understanding you and living to your own tune, your own song.
Being true to yourself.
Being true to yourself.
Self with a capital S.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But when you're true to yourself, you can be true to others because it all starts within. If you're not truthful to yourself, then you cannot project that outwardsly. If you're lying to yourself, you'll end up lying to everybody else. Staying ahead is about identifying what your rhythm is. And if the rhythm that you're living at the moment is not your rhythm, then changing it. And life's rhythm's always changing because it's always throwing a curveball. It ebbs and flows. And as it ebbs and flows, we've got to be able to adjust to that. And that adjustment, the Buddhists talk about the middle way, that no matter the ebb or the flow, whether you're at the trough or the peak, you
stay equanimous.
Stay equanimous, exactly. Yeah.
Stay right there in the middle. So,
right in the middle.
Like in English, we say, praise and blame are all the same. It's kind of that kind of a, that kind of a philosophy where the highs and the lows, take them in your stride and love them both.
Yeah. And that, in a nutshell, is the basic self-mastery process. We do have like another component to that, which is learn the art of dying. Now, that learn the art of dying is about letting go in the most simplistic way, if I may put it that way. But it's much more than that. It's about giving death to all of the things that you're attached to. So now you're absolved of everything and you're free. Yeah. And detachment is one of the hardest things to do because you've got to detach from your own attachments in yourself, which is ego identity, first and foremost. Only later then to use it playfully once you know that exists.
Like a sword, you use it to your advantage. You decide how you're going to wield it.
Absolutely.
And the whole idea of letting go of the identity is so that you can, it's not your master, you are its master.
That's right. But, in the process of self-mastery, you are the sword. You mentioned the word Shastra earlier on. Shastra means, cultivating the sword of consciousness. And really, martial arts is a Shastra, but with the physical element. Yeah. So using movement to code and reprogram your mind, emotion, spirit, and get you closer to Wu Chi.
So amazing. That is so inspiring. And the whole process that you've just outlined is, it completely makes sense, and the fact that you can begin, there is no mastery without involving the mind, is there? There's no mastery, physical mastery ever, whether you're a swimmer at a high level, whether you're any kind of an athlete, or whether you're a corporate warrior, you're some sort of a CEO or whatever. At the end of the day, you need to learn how to use your biggest weapon, which is your mind.
That's right. Absolutely. The most dangerous weapon as well. And probably the most volatile weapon in humankind.
And least understood, perhaps.
I think humans are really trying to give it a good shot. But there is so much information out there, especially in the ancient scriptures, like you mentioned, about how to cultivate and get a grasp of the mind, that it's been there for a
Thousands
long
of
time,
years.
5,
It
6,000
really,
years at least.
really shocks me. So thank you so much today for joining me, Lak. It's been so enlightening and inspiring, and I'm really grateful that you've made the time to see us today. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Smita, for having me. Appreciate your time.